Joining us today is Kevin Tang, who graduated from the University of Toronto in Neuroscience. On top of pursuing multiple research opportunities during his undergrad, Kevin also led a second-year learning community, as well as being an avid singer and piano player. It's great to have you, Kevin.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Euban. Thanks for having me on this program.
So, just to get us started, how would you describe your undergrad experience overall?
I'd say it's most similar to like a TV show. I think in the sense that, like when you have TV shows where like the first season it's kind of rough, you kind of have things, figure things out. Second season is a little bit better than that, and then the third and fourth season get a lot better. I think that would be kind of similar to my undergrad because my first 2 years were a little bit, trying to figure out how to navigate the waters of UofT. I think third and fourth year, I kind of was able to settle to my own groove academically, involvement in like the community as well. So I think by the end of it, the fourth year, like I'm pretty happy with my undergrad. I think it was just the balance between like academia, social life, and personal life, which is what I tried to maintain in 4 years. So I think I tried to do a good job at that. So I think I'm most proud about that.
So would you say that things started like going more uphill, in a good way, I mean, when you started being able to balance your life a bit better, as you said?
Yeah, I definitely got better once I got to balance my life. Just doing well in one area of life is not really good for my overall well-being. Like for instance, if I focus too much on school, that doesn't really mean too much to me. Or if I focus too much on like just social life, it doesn't really mean too much. I think it's like the overall balance between all of them, which I tried to at least maintain throughout my 4 years.
So what kind of communities were you able to be a part of that kind of helped you get that balance?
I think in second year, I joined this like fellowship pertaining to my religion in second year. So I joined this like Christian fellowship community. In third year, I tried joining like TEDx at UofT. And then fourth year, I joined a dragon boating club. So it was like a good mix of different people as well. So you got to, meet different people, see different perspectives of undergrad. So I think if I were to do it again, I definitely try to get a good mix of just meeting different people and just to see how they view undergrad differently than me.
In terms of academics, what exactly got you into neuroscience?
I think I have a kind of a weird story because I think my choice to go into neuroscience was kind of by chance, but I learned to like really like it afterwards. So in first year when I first applied to all these posts, neuroscience wasn't actually my first pick. I think my older sister, she went to life science and then she chose like pharmacology. So I just decided to choose that as well, but that didn't work out. So I was placed with neuroscience as my first choice afterwards. And I think I've soon to really love it because neuroscience to me is like where biology meets larger life issues. Like for me, I'm interested in like philosophy and this type of abstract stuff. And neuroscience is like a good balance between how we're able to make experience with the world and how that reduces down to biology. So to be able to have like that perspective on what you're studying was really interesting to me. Yeah, I think it's just a really cool discipline. Also with technology as well, you have like AI as well, cognition. Companies like Neuralink who are trying to implement like neuroscience as well as technology. So I think it's a growing field, especially more relevant to our times right now. And I think it's an exciting place to be.
So we've talked a bit about your delving into the different communities that are available at UofT. Seems like you tried a whole variety, actually. So we were wondering, on one hand, you have your peers, and on the other hand, sometimes in undergrad, we look for mentors, people who have more experience than us, maybe profs or maybe TAs or maybe just older students. So we were wondering if you encountered any mentors along the way who helped you in your journey.
I think there's at least two mentors that really helped me pursue undergraduate research. So the first one, his name is Junsung Kim. He's a PhD student at OISE. So in my second year, I tried to find some research experiences, and there is a program for second years called RP 299. For anyone watching, RP 299 is a program for second year students to work on a year-long project under a supervisor. And it really helped get me exposed to the field of research on the most basic level. Like the stuff I did was basic, like computer work and data analysis. But this mentor really helped me because he helped challenge myself mentally by like trying to find new problems to solve. But also he helped me meet my second mentor, which was a bit of an older one. He's a professor emeritus. His name's Dr. Fergus Craig, and he works at Baycrest. Basically, after that stint of RP 299, I started applying frantically to different hospitals, as any second year does. And luckily, I was able to be accepted by Dr. Craig, and he took me under his wing and then showed me the basics way to run experiments in psychology. So like the memory stuff that both of you have helped me in on my thesis. Yeah, that was all due to this mentor, and he was really open to just like teaching me how to run these experiments as well as to just support me throughout the way. In terms of the undergraduate research that I had, I would not have been able to get those if not for these two mentors. I think it's really based on like the connections that you find. Like I think one thing that I found for me is that if you find like one person, they might lead you to another person, and then it just initiates a cascade. So eventually, maybe the mentor you find is like 100 connections down that line, but as long as you try to keep searching, like I think maybe one day, hopefully, that you'll be able to find like the right ones for you.
Would you say that this mentor is the person who kind of got you to delve into one side of neuroscience the most? Because I think since neuroscience is such a big field with neurotech, neurobiology, everything like that, would you say that this mentorship is what helped you kind of get into that one section the most?
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right. You've been like, it definitely helped me get into that specific side of neuroscience, which was more on the cognitive psychology, neuroscience type. And through that, I was able to like, I guess, read specific literature stuff for that. If not for that mentor, I probably wouldn't have been exposed to that side of neuroscience. But yeah, I think it just struck me just how vast neuroscience is as a subject, and you kind of need certain people to help you see certain sides of it, or at least just kind of see what things you might be more interested in. I think for me, at least, if I hadn't met that mentor, I probably would still be interested in like the biological side of neuroscience or like the philosophical implications of neuroscience, but probably not the specific research side that I was exposed to.
Mm-hmm. Your current interests right now are specifically in memory, right? Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so pretty much the research that I've done is related to memory, neuroscience, and psychology. So pretty much the overarching question is like what best constitutes memory and what are like the neural underpinnings for better memory. So at least for the thesis that both of you have helped me on. So for the viewers, basically I was running a thesis project, and then you and Emily graciously decided to help me as participants in my thesis project. So for the thesis, I try to look at how attention and memory intersect, and to see if multitasking affects memory performance. So that type of research is very cognitively science oriented with, I'd say, a little bit of neuroscience, but we had to run people in fMRI scanner. So we were able to look at the brain regions that were associated with, one type of memory versus another type. It was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to participate in, by the way. So tell us a bit more about what it is that you were studying. So you said that you were looking at multitasking and how it affects memory. Could you tell us about what exactly it means to multitask, what it means to have your full attention dedicated to something rather than a divided attention?
I'm no expert in the field. I can only speak to, I guess, what I learned in that 1 year. But for understand, full attention is kind of like when you're studying for something and you only try to focus on that one thing that you're doing. Like this is like when you're studying at Gerstein and you only have your laptop open, nothing else that you're focusing on. In contrast, divided attention is kind of like multitasking when you're, let's say, studying while listening to Netflix. You're kind of diverting the streams of attention to two things. Basically, what I was trying to see with my supervisors is if this divided attention would decrease memory because you're not focusing as much attention to that one task compared to if you're just focusing it completely on that one task. And that's kind of what we found, that, yeah, divided attention does decrease memory levels. So that was a positive result that we found. And we're able to look at some brain regions that were associated with divided attention, although the picture isn't very clear, and the results are kind of still in progress right now. But yeah, the next step would just be to see what brain regions are activated during divided attention or full attention, and to help us better see what that picture is.
That's pretty cool that you can see, like, using the fMRI, what areas of the brain light up when you're using full attention versus divided attention. So what kinds of, are there specific areas that are devoted to these two different kinds of attention?
I don't know yet because we're still kind of looking at the data. I would think that there are different regions associated with full attention, divided attention. Perhaps it might be that divided attention may require more of like the front region of the brain because you need more control or executive function to dictate which task to follow. At least that's what I think, but you know, the results might come out completely different. I guess that's the cool side of undergraduate research. You know, it's a constant field of uncertainty, and at least you need to at least try to make some guesses towards what's going to happen.
With what you've learned from your thesis so far, in general, would you say that multitasking is bad for your memory?
I think generally, yes, multitasking is bad for memory, just because you can think of attention as like a limited resource like money. And if you're to like invest your money in like two separate things, it's likely that for that one thing, your amount of money is like less than, you know, if you were to just put all of your savings in that one account. And I think maybe from personal experience, you might also experience this too. Like if you're just multitasking while listening to something else or talking with someone else, you might not remember what you just said or just studied. At least for me, at least that's what I've experienced. And of course, there's like exemptions to that rule at least, but I think as a general rule, I think that is true. Yeah. Divided attention does lead to worse memory.
You mentioned that you studied all of this on memory and attention using fMRI. So could you tell us a bit about how it was, like what it was like to learn how to use the fMRI machine?
To kind of clarify to what exactly I did in MRI, I think running it might be a bit of an overstatement because whenever you go into an MRI facility, the technician who's always by your side because you're an undergrad, they're kind of the ones running the scenes, like setting up the MRI, pushing like the start button, you know, recording all the scans. My role was kind of to kind of supervise the participant in the fMRI scanner and make sure that the program, the software was running correctly. So it was as much as like, let's say computer science as well as fMRI running as well. But that was kind of like what I was doing just to make sure the program was running correctly and data was corrected. The stuff that I was doing in order to get to that stage, so basically I worked at Tony, which is the fMRI scanner in Ramsey Wright. There was a bit of a training program that they had. So they had invited some students in, and then they just showed you the basics of how to use fMRI. And then there's a little bit of a step further than that. So they let you use a bit of a mock scanner. So a mock scanner is like a pseudo fMRI scanner, which looks physically the same, but just has the magnets removed. So you can like put people in there and then try to run your experiment and then just see if the software works well. Of course, people don't get their real fMRIs done there. It's just as like a formality. And then only once you get past the stage, then you go into like the real stage, which is where you both have been, which is when you actually go into the fMRI scanner. So that's kind of the progression of it. It seems a bit daunting when you look at it as a whole, but of course there's people to help you along the way, such as like the tech people from Tony, who are really gracious with their time in helping me out. So overall, the experience wasn't too daunting, although the result, you know, might have been a huge learning curve though.
Is this learning opportunity open for people to sign up?
I'm not exactly sure in this specific year because of the COVID stuff. I think
Right.
Tony is closed for this year. But from what I understand is that sometime in March or early April, they have this type of orientation session for using the fMRI. So last year for me, when I was trying to run subjects, that's the one I attended like in April to just kind of learn the basics of how to use the facility. And I think anyone can sign up for it, but it's kind of low-key hidden somewhere. So I think you have to like check the Tony website to make sure that you know the dates of it. So I think that's the best way to find out. But yeah, I think it's open to anyone as long as you have a reason for using the fMRI. Hopefully you're not just scanning people's brain just for the fun of it, because it's kind of expensive. You usually have to have a project to accompany your use of the fMRI as well. So for anyone who is like, let's say in the psych field and needs fMRI results, I think Tony is the best way to acquire fMRI results through the facility.
If that part wasn't too difficult for you, what do you think the most difficult part of your research experience in undergrad would be?
I think the most difficult part was just finding that first connection that kind of sparked the rest of my connections. The hardest part really was just beginning from ground zero as a first year and just trying to find that one professor that was willing to take me on or something. I'm sure we both may have realized, like in first year, we kind of all start off in the same boat, so to speak. Like we don't have research experience or any other thing besides grades, I guess. It's kind of hard to just find that first connection. So for me, at least, I realized that I couldn't land those like major, hospital things easy with just as a first year. So I kind of volunteered with more basic type of like research stuff. Like I volunteered with a professor at Ryerson and just did some transcribing and listening to interviews. And then that helped me to get into that RP position. And then I also was able to make some connections with further Ryerson professors and to further work with them. And then that eventually helped me get into like Baycrest. So it's really hard just to make that first one. So like, for instance, like it was really hard to kind of even find that Ryerson one because there was a whole bunch of students applying to that as well. So I didn't have much of a case to kind of make myself stand out. But I think what I learned is that as long as you just keep trying at least, hopefully that you're able to get somewhere. So I remember one time when I applied in first year, we applied to maybe 40 or 30 different professors by email and just hoping that someone would at least pick us out of there. And there was one professor from York in kinesiology who offered to like interview me. So short story is that the interview didn't go too well because I wasn't very prepared. But that really helped me to further prepare for interviews and learn what didn't work. That really helps me for like the bigger stage interviews. So it's kind of cliche to say that the research field is kind of like a process, but I think I'm more convinced that it really is, because if you just look at any single time in like my undergrad, like none of those could have just made it, to the next stage, like logically. You needed to kind of have everything summate together, and you had to learn your experiences beforehand to apply to this one, and then eventually helped you move to the next stage, and then so forth and so forth. So yeah, I think definitely what helped me to navigate that scene was just to constantly just keep trying and to constantly persevere as well, hoping that like something good would come out of it. And at least for my case, at least, I think something did good come out of it. So I think that was a good thing for me. If anything, I think if I were to do this again, I just try to make sure I have the intentions set correctly before at least trying to apply to anything, and just be ready for the unpredictability of trying at least to pursue this path.
When you say that you'd hope to have your heart set and your intention set, what do you mean by that?
I think it's just kind of know why you at least try to go for research as well. Some people go into research because of, let's say, for med school or for any other type of professional school. I think what I found out is that the master's or PhD students that I've worked with, or even the professors, that doesn't seem to be their goal in the long term. I think those are kind of like the more external factors are good for kind of in the short term, like to kind of get you motivated to move to the next step. But I think for me, at least, I really try to assess my motives and to really be genuine in my interest in research. So like, I didn't want to go into research solely just because of like med school or any other type of professional school. Like I wanted to just do it because I wanted to do it. And I think it's really hard to kind of keep that mindset in the short term, because it doesn't necessarily get you anywhere per se, but I think in the long term, it really separates people who really, stay in their path and versus people who don't. And if you talk with any professor who's actively doing research, like they always say that like you must love what you're doing. And it's so much that it kind of seems like common sense, but I think there really is some truth to that. Like regardless of what you do, not even just research, but if you have some type of thing or hobby that you're really committed to, and if you really love it, then I think the hard work that comes with it just comes as a result of it. You don't really need to try, at least. But yeah, I think it's best to try to at least orient yourself in the right direction in terms of your motives when you at least try out for research. But of course, practically speaking, that isn't always feasible. Like for me, at least when I was in first year, I think the main reason for me trying to apply for research was like, I just wanted to at least get some experience whatsoever, which probably won't hold up in the long term. But I think as more time went on and I tried to learn more about the research, I really was cognizant of like my interest really in research and how personal it was to me. So that's kind of like a progress in of itself, like your motives in research. But I think that also comes with more experience in just trying to apply. Also failing as well in getting rejected from research positions, which I think is kind of inevitable, but it really sharpens up your motives as to why you keep trying for these things as well. Yeah, but I think research definitely is something that students should at least try for, at least in their undergrad, just because of how meaningful that you might find it to be. Even if it's not something that you end up choosing or whatever, I think it's definitely a valuable experience to have. Just because of the general life lessons that you learn, such as, for me at least, I learned that, you know, to know motives in choosing something. I think that's one of the main things I learned from research, that really you need to have like a really good heart for going into research in the long term. Another thing that I learned in research is just like failures and success is just intrinsically intertwined with each other. You don't get, you know, for me at least, like I didn't get like positions in RRP or whatever without failing first in York. Or if I did get in York, I probably wouldn't have gotten this position, which have probably changed my trajectory in undergrad. So I think it's just, you know, I think as people who view like fourth years and like, oh, like look at all their research experience, I think they fail to kind of see the other side to it, which is like all of the past failures that went along with them as well. Like if people were just look at my failures in research, they probably would see a larger picture than my successes, so to speak. But I think it's just the reality of how they're both intertwined together. And I think for people who really want to at least try for undergraduate research, you really need to just kind of accept that it's kind of an inevitable part of just failing, or at least trying for a position and kind of not getting it, or at least not failure is very low. But at least in my perspective, the failure was absolutely critical for helping me to move forward, because there were only lessons that I could learn in getting rejected from research that I couldn't have learned just by succeeding in it. So for instance, in the example I gave, I only learned that I was not prepared for interviews because I went unprepared for an interview and got completely obliterated. And that helped me, you know, to better prepare for interviews when it mattered. So in this sense, failure isn't really a bad thing. I think it's only a good thing when you realize what you can learn from it to better improve your future. So I think as a general life example, I think that's, or general life advice, I think that's a valuable thing that research has taught me. And I think I could take that with me wherever I go. So um, yeah, the benefits of research, I think, are just are really good, depending on if you go in there or not. I think it's just the life lessons that you learn from it, I think, are invaluable.
In your ideal position, would you be doing clinical work as well as research at the same time?
I think ideally, yes. I think it's just because I just realized that when it comes to clinical stuff, just generally, you need some type of like theoretical framework to inform what you're doing, but as well, like what you clinically do can inform your theoretical underpinnings as well. So I think that research and clinical sides are kind of complementary in that sense. And I think it just appeals to me also personally because I liked the thinking about the theoretical sides, but I also liked seeing how it's implemented in real life as well. I think ideally that's type of the path that I'd want to go into. I think that the cool thing about just psychology research in general is that how applicable it is to your everyday life. For instance, for me, at least in second year, I struggled really hard in just memorizing material. I put a lot of effort into it, but I just couldn't, you know, stick it fully in my brain. But after reading a bit of like the memory literature and trying to see like what fit my memory styles best, I was able to like not only just increase my memory retention in like these lectures and courses, but also to improve my grades. Also why I think my undergrad was kind of Breaking Bad in that because like each season kept getting better and better. So I think that memory research really was informative for helping me get, I guess, better academically as well as on the research side. So that's one thing that I'm forever grateful for.